Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to a new series of videos that I am putting together. I'm going to be looking at the comic book movies of old. I'm talking about comic book movies that came before what we have now, before the MCU, before the DC universe, whatever they're doing with that, who knows. So this is episode 1, so I'm going to be taking a look at the 1990 movie Captain America. Now, a lot of these films, they don't get no love anymore. No one watches them. No one talks about them because we've all been spoilt by the MCU and all that sort of stuff that we're getting now. Now, I've read comic books since the late 80s at least, right? So back in the day when I was collecting then, comic book movies were few and far between. They weren't taken seriously. They were a joke in Hollywood. Obviously, you had your Superman, you had your Batman, but beyond that, you didn't have anything. They just weren't, money weren't pumped into them. Marvel were trying to get off the ground with some films with complete failures and this sort of thing. So what we have now really has spoiled us. Back in the day, I could only dream of the sort of content that we're getting now. It was a pipe dream. It was something that could never be, just because it was impractical from a special effects side of things. You just wouldn't be able to do it. Today's world of comic book movies is fantastic, and I remember the days of Wizard magazine. Anyone who read comics and collected comics would remember Wizard magazine. Now, this magazine was a monthly magazine, and it used to have a section in it where it fan casted movies, like an Avengers movie or an Iron Man movie, and this sort of thing. With the Iron Man one, I think they probably casted someone like Timothy Dalton as Iron Man, and his look was certainly taken and used and inspired by Alex Ross when he done the Marvel's comic book series. But this is not about that. This is about those films that came back then. Now, I thought I would start with Captain America. Captain America here. I do have it on Blu-ray. This is a German release of the movie. It's got a reversible sleeve and all that sort of thing, like so, as you can see. Captain America. Now, this film here, Captain America, it was released here in the UK on December the 21st of 1990. This was a straight-to-video release. The film went straight to video, and it didn't have a theatrical run. It ran for 1 hour and 37 minutes and was directed by Albert Pyun, who had directed a year or two before the Jean-Claude Van Damme film Cyborg. He went on to direct things like Kickboxer 2 and loads of other sort of cheapy kind of films. This film was actually made on a budget of $3 million. Imagine that, $3 million. The film saw Matt Salinger cast in the role of Captain America, Ronnie Cox, who you will know from RoboCop and Total Recall, as Tom Kimball, who was the US president, and Ned Beatty, who you would know, also recognisable actor. He was in Superman the movie, Superman 2, as Sam Kolowitz, who was Tom Kimball's best friend. Now, this film, yes, it's a cheap film. Let me tell you my thoughts on it. Let me break down the story. So, the story. It's set in the past, World War II. America's developing a super soldier serum, but what it is the Germans have actually developed it first. Well, I say the Germans, it's actually Italian. It's set in Italy. The rise of the Red Skull came from Italy. Red Skull is it's Italian. I know that the Italians assisted the Germans during World War II when they were taken over. They had no choice. That reminds me, I do actually have some antique World War II Italian guns for sale. Never fired, dropped once. That's a little joke if you're wondering. Anyway, so the Red Skull's origin comes from Italy, which obviously, anyway. So they go and take this kid, they steal him out of his home, they kill his parents and his family, and they test on him. Only the woman doing the testing, this Italian scientist, she isn't too happy. She does a runner, and she joins the Americans, and thusly they perfect the process. And they use Steve Rogers who's you know, a grown-up fella. He's not weedy and looking like weedy, but he walks with a limp and this sort of thing because he's got problems. And he accepts going off and having this thing done, treatment done. And like in the MCU, the scientist is killed. The formula's in her head, so it's lost with her. As is what the shield is made of and what the suit's made of. It was all from her, and it's all up here. She never wrote anything down, although she did have a diary, but that comes into play a bit later. Anyway, so he becomes Captain America. He goes off. He fights a Red Skull, but he gets beaten by the Red Skull. He gets stuck onto a bomb that, you know, flies towards America. It's going to blow up the White House, but he manages to kick one of the wings on it, which makes it go elsewhere, goes off route, and it crashes in the Arctic, thus freezing him until we come to sort of modern day, this being 1990, and he's awoken, and yeah, the Red Skull knows that he's awoken because photo was taken of him, which gets put in the paper. The Red Skull sees this, who's now had his face made to look like skin grafts, so he's still scarred up, but he doesn't look red and scully. He's got his own daughter in it. He's a bad guy. Blah 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 blah. All this sort of thing. Anyway, the film itself, you know, it is a Captain America film, right? Now, this is a bad film, but I enjoy it. Yeah, it's one of those sort of, it's so bad it's good kind of a scenario. It's faithful to the comic, with the exception of the Red Skull stuff. But the look of the Red Skull is faithful to the comic. The origin is faithful to the comic. Yeah, I can't knock that. The film has issues. It has pacing issues. It has editing issues. It has the fact that the bad guys just happen to know where Steve Rogers is all the time. They go after him, and they're there with him, right? Ned Beatty goes off as a reporter, goes off looking for Steve, and just happens to find him. The road he's driving along, Steve Rogers comes running out of the woods, being chased by the bad guys. It's got this sort of stupid nonsense and logic to it, like things are where they need to be because the script demands it. That kind of a sort of logic to the writing. The acting is poor, you know, all this sort of stuff. But I've got to say, the film does get a lot right. It gets a lot right in the origin. It gets, when you get Steve Rogers go and revisit his love of his life, which isn't Peggy Carter, it's this other woman who's now aged. I like that stuff. I like it. That man out of time kind of scenario, and the romanticism of that sort of thing, of what you've lost and the time that you've missed and this sort of thing, and she's moved on with her life with another bloke and all this sort of stuff. It's just fantastic. And I like that stuff within this film. Now, the special effects are rubbish, don't get me wrong. The film it feels very European because a lot of it is set in Europe. And when he's being chased around by Porsches and people on motorbikes, this sort of thing, I think of films like Condor Man. My mind goes to Condor Man. It's got that sort of a feel if you've ever seen Condor Man. There's stuff in that where it's set in Europe and he's being chased by black Porsches. And it's the same sort of sense here. The film does have another story around it where the Red Skull wants to become president of the United States, but he can't become the president of the United States. But he's got this mind thing, he can take over Tom Kimball, Ronnie Cox's president's mind, by putting some stuff into it, a chip into it, this sort of a thing, and thus control him, and thus sort of be the president of the United States by using a puppet, essentially. You know what I mean? Like whatever he tells Kimball to do, Kimball will do, this sort of a thing. So Captain America has to go and save the president, and this sort of nonsense going on. Now the editing in the film is bad. I mean, so much so that it's one of these films where when you have an action scene, like a close-up action scene with Captain America, you've got about 20 edits in the matter of like 3 seconds. You know, it's like cut. So, you know, it's that sort of horrible editing like that. Yeah, the film is silly in a sense, in that when at the beginning when Captain America sends this rocket off, a little boy takes a photo of him, and that little boy ends up being the president, and his best mate from back then is Ned Beatty, little boy Ned Beatty version, who's giving him this little key ring. He's still got this key ring when he's older, and the president's still got the photo in his wallet and all this sort of nonsense, right? Stuff you just wouldn't believe. Ronnie Cox tries to do the best with what he's given, and ultimately fails. Matt Salinger, you know, I don't mind him in the film as Captain America, but when you've been given Chris Evans, it's just, you know, this is a bad film, but I enjoy it, and I can go back to it every 5-6 years and watch it and get something out of it, and I don't know why, because I know it's a crappy film. Now, the suit, it's a rubbery material, but it's comic accurate. It's comic accurate, but the ludicrousness of the comic, you know, the suit is that comic ludicrousness, whereas in the MCU, the suit was given a sort of functionality, a practicability about it for World War II and when it came into modern days. And he's got rubber ears. His ears are rubber. I mean, like, the suit is made with rubber ears on it, so not his real ears sticking out, this sort of a thing. The shield looks plastic when he throws it. It looks like Frisbee. It's just, you know, it's just ludicrous stuff within the film. One bit that did annoy me is him smoking. Yes, there's a scene at the beginning where he's been driven off to his test, to his experimentation. He's like smoking in the car, and I don't know. That wound me up. That whenever I see that bit, it just annoys me. The fact that you'd have Captain America even smoking, Steve Rogers, you know, what a bad example to give to people. I know it's from an era in reality where a lot of people did smoke. I get that sort of a thing. But yeah, so it's a badly directed film. It's a badly edited film. It's a badly acted film, but I can watch it and I can enjoy it. What that says about me, I don't know. As soon as I knew that that it was available in Germany, I just had to have it for my collection, which was a while ago I got it, I'll say that. But yeah, I mean, one positive from the film is actually the music. Barry Goldberg was the composer on this film, and he's got a pretty damn good score within the film. It's got some memorable music when you're watching it, you know. It's very uplifting at times. You know, there's certain segments that would stick in your mind if you become aware of them. Yeah, and it works for the film. It works for Captain America. It's got some good soundtrack to it. But anyway, so I can't recommend the film to you. I can't tell you to go and watch the film, but I'm going to make myself sit through these crappy movies that came before what we're getting today. Some of them won't be crappy because obviously you've got the Marvel stuff that came before the MCU. But I will be looking into other films as well, and I'm talking about the films outside of the MCU. So I'm talking about films like Barbed Wire and Vampirella and all this sort of thing. So if there's any film that you're interested in from the history of comic book movies that you'd like me to watch, well, then let me know, and I might put it above the list that I've created and how I'm going to do this. I don't yet know how often I'll do this. Maybe every 2 weeks or something, I'll pop one of these out. I'll stick one in, I'll watch it, and I'll give it a review, give you my thoughts on it. But yeah, so an enjoyable film, a rubbish film, but an enjoyable one. It's you know, it's so bad it's good. What else can I say about it? So that's 1990s Captain America. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more. If you want to see me talk about some other films from the past, these older comic book movies, and I'll speak to you later. Take care all, and goodbye. That reminds me, I do actually have some antique World War II guns. That reminds me, I do actually have some antique World War II Italian guns for sale. Yes, dropped once. That reminds me, I do actually have some antique World War... I can't do it. That reminds me, I do actually have some antique World War guns. That reminds me, I do actually have some antique World War guns. I can't get it out.